Good morning, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces in the room, a lot of new folks. Thank you all for the privilege of speaking here today. Most of you know me. For those of you who do not, my name is Bill Groffy. I am currently the acting director of the Bureau of Land Management. I look forward today to providing updates on our administration's priorities for you all. First, though, I would like to introduce our BLM team. If they would stand, please. They're all over the room here. And so during the next break here, please seek them out. They're a great team. They're doing a great job for you here in the state of Colorado. Having grown up here in Colorado and worked in positions related to natural resource policy in this state for most of my life, I know the critical role that local governments play in sustaining communities and economies in Colorado. Many of our public lands are situated throughout Colorado's municipalities and counties. The BLM alone administers more than 10% of the nation's surface area and 30% of our mineral estate. In Colorado alone, the BLM manages 8.3 million acres of public lands and more than 27 million acres of mineral estate. Colorado ranked in the top 5 among the nation's BLM states for the number of jobs supported by multiple use on public lands. And I'm going to reiterate that, multiple use. I wanted to thank you for continued partnership with us as we manage our nation's public lands. I want to continue to fortify these relationships and get your input on how best to handle administration priorities at all levels of the BLM and ultimately in the Department of Interior. Secretary Burgum has been clear that he wants the BLM to seek local input on major decisions for projects that impact your communities, and Karen Budd Fallon constantly reminds me that we need to seek out local government input. With that in mind, I would like to provide some updates on our agency. The BLM has taken actions to align with the administration's broader commitment to cut regulatory burdens, foster job creation, and promote responsible energy development on our public lands. We're here to help the administration put the public lands to work for the American people. These actions also lead to more investment in your local communities. We have updated policy to expedite oil and gas leasing processes on public lands, committing to faster lease parcels reviews that will complete the entire process within 6 months, which will cut review times nearly in half. We have also issued more than 31 direct final rules that have rescinded or revised 68 sections of the Code of Federal Regulations. By removing the unnecessary regulatory burdens, we are advancing America's energy independence and economic vitality. The BLM continues to implement key changes and regulatory actions under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act from President Trump. This is promotes U.S. energy production while ensuring responsible management of our natural resources and public lands. We have held a number of successful oil and gas lease sales under this act. So far this year, lease sales have generated $592.7 million in revenue. That's just this year. This quarter's totals are the most revenue generated at this point of the calendar year ever in BLM history, and more revenue than the entire 4 years of the Biden administration combined. And we will continue to do more this year. This revenue is shared with local state governments. Last month in Alaska, the BLM held a landmark oil and gas lease sale for the National Petroleum Reserve, resulting in 187 leases and an additional $177 million in total receipts. That sale was the first for the reserve since 2019 and the first one under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Under the act, the BLM must hold 5 lease sales in the reserve by 2035, each offering no fewer than 4 million acres for lease. There are approximately 21.4 million acres of BLM managed lands under lease for oil and gas. In fiscal year 2025, BLM offered 359 parcels and more than 702,000 acres for leasing. The BLM's current 31,833 leases, hard to say, in effect also generated $7.5 billion in revenue. Okay, what are we doing in Colorado? There are currently more than 2 million acres of BLM managed lands under lease for oil and gas across 2,793 leases, which in fiscal year 2025 generated $191 million here in the state of Colorado. So far in fiscal year 2026, BLM Colorado has offered 173 parcels with 124,134 acres, and we have sold 105 parcels with 73,061 acres. It has generated approximately $13 million in total receipts. And if you've been keeping track, you will see that we have increased the number of acres offered every single lease sale that we've had since the president has been in office here. The BLM Colorado is also preparing for its next competitive lease sale, which will be on June 16th, where we will offer 170 parcels totaling 155,000 acres. Meanwhile, during the first year of President Trump's second term, the BLM has approved 6,201 new oil and gas permits, APDs. This is more APDs approved in a single year than in any other individual year over the past 15 years. We at the BLM continue to find ways to improve APD processing times, working toward the goal of approving APDs within 100 days of application acceptance during this fiscal year. I will also note that I'm trying to get our staffs to also get their 10-day letters out within 10 days, as required by statute. Our long-term goal and objective is to reduce approval times to fewer than 100 days. The Deputy Secretary of Interior has asked me to make sure we get it down to 70 by the end of the Trump administration. So we will be working hard to do that. Compared to APD processing times between fiscal year 2024 and so far in fiscal year 2026, the BLM has already reduced permitting timeframes by at least 100 days. As of April 6th, the BLM has a total of 85 pending applications for permit to drill in Colorado. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act also eliminated the expressions of interest fee established under the Inflation Reduction Act, paid by lessees to nominate lands for leasing. The OBBA also requires that upon approval, a permit to drill will now be valid for 4 years. In addition, the act requires that BLM must now lease nominated parcels within 18 months of being nominated and may not add new restrictions outside those stipulations included in resource management plans. In the longer term, the act requires BLM to update its oil and gas regulations. So right now we have 3 major efforts going on at this time. First, in January, we announced a proposed rule to modernize restrictive oil and gas regulations that limit the practice of commingling, which allows production for multiple leases to be combined using a single well pad. The rule is aimed at improving efficiency and strengthening domestic energy production. The rule would remove barriers that have constrained development in areas with complex mineral ownership, such as Colorado, and encourages practices that minimize surface impacts. By consolidating production facilities, reducing the amount of equipment necessary to produce, store, and sell oil and gas. The public comment period for that rule recently ended on March 31st, and we are looking forward to developing the final rule that reflects congressional intent in the OBBA Act and also practical realities in the field. In the meantime, as a bridge to that, BLM has issued interim guidance through an IM to broaden commingling authority on public and Indian lands until updated regulations are complete. And I am encouraging all staff to utilize that IM and say yes to commingling. Second, we are also working to revise the BLM's oil and gas leasing rule to reflect new requirements that were in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the Royalty Resiliency Act, and President Trump's various executive orders. The proposed rule would update the BLM's leasing process to improve energy leasing, development, and production capacity in the United States. And finally, we're also working to revise the 2024 waste prevention rule, which pertains to royalties due on oil and natural gas lost on federal and Indian leases. Through this new effort, we would reduce unnecessary compliance burdens for operators, streamline the BLM's royalty determinations on lost oil and natural gas. In February, Interior implemented the landmark 7-county court case by announcing final sweeping reform to its NEPA procedures, accelerating project approvals, and restoring NEPA to its intended role as a focused, efficient decision-making tool, not something to stop development. The reforms, which are part of a whole government approach, rescinds outdated and duplicative regulatory provisions that had accumulated over decades while retaining core requirements necessary to comply with the original NEPA statute. By shifting most procedural requirements into a department handbook, the department provides clear, practical guidance to staff while preserving flexibility that meets operational and project needs. These reforms are expected to significantly reduce delays and costs for projects across public lands, including not only for energy development, but also for critical minerals, livestock grazing, infrastructure, wildfire mitigation, water projects, and a whole bunch of other things. The regulations that remain govern when and how to comply with NEPA and protect the ability of state and local governments to be a part of the analysis process. I'll take a sidestep on NEPA. DNA, CX, EA, then EIS, a hierarchy of decision making. Further, in response to the President's declaration of a national energy emergency, last year Secretary Burgum announced emergency permitting procedures to accelerate the development of domestic energy resources and critical minerals. This alternative NEPA compliance process allows for shorter documents and compressed timelines, all while complying with the Endangered Species Act and the National Historical Preservation Act. Expedited environmental assessments, which historically could take up to a year, may now be completed within approximately 14 days. Expedited environmental impact statements, which historically could take 2 years, now will be completed in roughly 28 days. In addition, last fall, BLM adopted 65 categorical exclusions, bringing us to a total of 102 adopted under this administration. Several which will improve the efficiency of our oil and gas exploration approvals while ensuring environmental compliance. These actions will expedite review and approval of not just exploration, but also rights-of-ways involving pipelines. And effective this past July, the new NEPA regulations allow BLM to use all categorical exclusions adopted or established by other department bureaus for a total of 432 categorical exclusions now available for use by BLM staff. Categorical exclusions from other agencies can be used to streamline management of minerals, realty, forest, fire, wild horse and burro, recreation, wildlife, resource protection, and also address emergencies under the Fiscal Responsibility Act. These are especially applicable to review and approval of rights-of-ways, including power lines, fiber optic lines, pipelines, and also for grazing, mineral exploration, and many, many more activities. It makes sense to use the same streamlined process for permitting certain energy activities that other government agencies have proven can work. We are also aware that there is an interest among independent producers in a permit by rule for energy projects, and the BLM is in the early stages of considering such options. The BLM expects these procedures could support acceleration of right-of-way approvals to support the development of oil and natural gas production on both federal and private land. Another major effort underway is our proposed repeal of the Conservation Landscape Health Rule, or what I call the Public Lands Rule. The Public Lands Rule exceeds BLM's statutory authority by placing an outsized priority on conservation or non-use at the expense of multi-use access, threatening to curtail grazing, energy development, recreation, and other traditional land uses. The people who depend on public lands for their livelihood have every incentive to conserve them and have been doing so for generations. We don't need a new rule to force them to do that. The proposed rescission has been underway since last September. The rule rescission would restore balance to federal land management by prioritizing multi-use access, empowering local decision-making, and supporting responsible energy development, ranching, grazing, timber production, and recreation across America's public lands. In conclusion, these initiatives set the foundation for a renewed focus on responsible resource management, economic growth, and cultural preservation. By advancing policies that honor America's heritage while fostering innovation, sustainability, the department remains committed to serving the interests of the American people and managing our public lands for present and future generations. Thank you again for this opportunity and your partnership, and I'd like to open it up for any questions that you might have.
All right, y'all, let's come over to these microphones that we have reserved for your questions and for Mr. Groffy.
Sir, thank you very much for your remarks. I really appreciated your comments on some of the reduced timeframes. The 10 days is going to be 10 days and so forth. Can you comment on how one can gain confidence that will survive changes in administrations? It seems like every 4 years we're switching from one extreme to the other. What are the things this administration is doing to ensure, irrespective of who wins in 2028 or 32 or 36 or 40, these changes on the shortened timeframes you all highlighted can persist? Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Our system of government is awesome. Every 4 years you get a chance to change it. But what we can do while we're in office is try to solidify that as much as possible through various rulemakings. And to be honest with you, what we're trying to do is get things done, have courts act upon those in the next couple of years, and have a final decision made by the courts on whether or not what we think is the right way to manage the public lands is the proper way to do that. So that's pretty much what we're trying to get accomplished this year, or this administration, I mean.
Anyone else with a question? We've got the director here.
Thank you, Mr. Groffy. Wendell Koontz, Delta County. In a previous life, I worked at a coal mine in Gunnison and Delta counties. Back in the day, there was a coal leasing moratorium and a programmatic EIS underway. That programmatic EIS never ended. What can you do to make sure that that thing dies and never sees the light of day again?
Great question. I have to be very careful because I'm in a room of oil and gas folks, and they're competing against coal, so I don't want them throwing stuff at me. My biggest thing right now that we're working on is we are trying to get more coal development. The president announced it last year, opening up 13.1 million acres of federal coal for development. We are working through lease by application processes. The OBBA took some action to deal with coal. The president signed a couple executive orders on coal. It is a big issue for the president. As you know, he wants more coal developed. He wants coal plants to stay open. And here in Colorado, we would love to see more coal developed here in the state of Colorado, both on the private side as well as on the public side. Because while natural gas is great, we need everything. We need the coal and we need the natural gas. And it's an affordability issue, to be honest with you, with folks. So don't throw anything at me, natural gas folks. I'm still your friends.
Any more questions? Okay, so Mr. Groffy will also be joining us this evening at the steak fry, I believe, so you have a chance to chat with him informally as well, I believe. So with that, I believe, round of applause for Mr. Groffy, and we'll go to break.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.